Cool. It's 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Wednesday wind down. Wednesday wind down with Dan and friends. The webinar and YouTube show for people that want to be outdoors, people that find it harder to do, people that like to hang out with their friends, find it harder to do. So we're virtual. So I'm Dan Conger. I'm use the pronouns he, him. Tonight we're talking about permits and permit strategy. So permit season is on us. So that means that our summer trips, if you're going to be taking a longer summer trip, you need to be thinking about permits. So I've kind of got some ideas that I've kind of mapped out. I'd love to hear some feedback from you. So if there's something that comes up that you've done differently or that really clicks on trips that you've taken, I'd love to hear about it either in the chat or the Q&A. So let's get started with it. I wanted to talk about trips that are maybe more trips that are going to be more involved, trips that are maybe longer. There's a lot of places where trips it's hard to get in, right? The more people that go backpacking, which is great, but more people that go out means that there are certain areas that are harder to get into. And then there's other times where there's popularities of a film or a book, let's say Mile and a Half, that impacted the JMT in a good way. And Cheryl Strayed's Wild that really impacted the PCT. So there's this spike in use of the trail, and it makes it harder to get permits. So there's some strategies for those, and that's what I wanted to talk about tonight to kind of run through that. So, this first photo is actually on Muir Pass. It's a stop along the John Muir Trail. We were on a section of the John Muir Trail this particular year, but the JMT in the Sierra Nevada mountains here in California, pretty popular. Getting a permit for the entire full length, very, very challenging. So there's a lot to do on that one. So the first thing that you need to be thinking about is, where are you going? So the location of where you're taking your trip is significant. So I'm a big planner, so this just fits into it, right? And these next steps are all about planning. So here I've got CalTopo, and since I have the paid subscription, I can have an enormous amount of trips that I can keep in there and routes. So sometimes I'll just daydream something like, let's try that as a route and see what that looks like. So here's a route that I have that I'm thinking, oh, this could be really cool to go through Cottonwood Meadows or Horseshoe Meadows, and then maybe over New Army Pass, go up to Mount Langley, and then circle back around. So that's something I'm toying with. But having an idea on where you're going, right, that's one of the first steps. And I think I learned this years ago on a family vacation. My vacation time from work was coming up. I had limited time. And then my vacation time came up, and I looked at my wife and my family like, well, what should we do? I don't know. Well, this is booked up. We can't do this. So we ended up having a vacation at home. Like, well, for me, that really taught me the lesson that you need to plan a vacation to some extent. And maybe your plan is, I'm going to go here, and then we'll do some exploring along the way. That's enough of a plan. Me, and you can see I've got mileage, and I've got some ideas on where I might overnight. So I've got, I think this route is probably a 6 or 7 day trip. That's kind of my target I've been working on. So knowing where you're going and the route, really good idea to have, right? You got to plan that first. So then the other thing to be thinking about is, when are you going, right? So in my group, my brother is a teacher, so he's got a limiting factor. I like to go, and I think most other people in our group like to go late summer. So you could go early season, you might catch some snow, you have fewer mosquitoes. We're going late season, we have medium mosquitoes. Water levels, you do have to watch water levels in the Sierra, but we're going as late in the summer as we can. But I need to watch Mike's school schedule, right? Because I don't want to interfere with his school. I don't want to give him a little bit of buffer time coming back. Well, if you're going to Grand Canyon, you sure as hell don't want to go in the middle of the summer, right? That's opposite time. So there's probably two good categories of times, early and late, what fall and spring. I think it's generally that are good times to go. Now, if you're really brutal, and maybe you're going to go midwinter, maybe you're going to pick a different time, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So pick when you're going to go, and I think that's really important too. This is just kind of early concepts on your trip. When is the area where you're going, is it popular and is it impacted? So this was a trip that we took on the full route of the High Sierra Trail. Not super popular, not super impacted. I think it will become more over time. So it wasn't really hard to get permits on the one, but you may not know how popular or how impacted the trip is until you've done a little bit of research. So definitely worth doing some research on this, because right now, again, we're still talking planning and research. So spend some time. Once you figured out where you're going, look into the forums and get into some ideas as to how many people are going to go there. Now, that said, we had a trip a few years ago out of Twin Lakes, Bishop area. And I thought, for whatever reason, I got it in my head that it was going to be remote and we weren't going to see anybody on the trip. Like, we'll see people on the first day and the last day, and then we won't see anybody. It was anything but. We saw lots of people on that trip. Now, not Whitney quantities, but we saw a lot of people. No trouble getting the permit, but my guess on how many people were going there was absolutely wrong. So if you're unsure, do some research, right? There's some great internet research on forums, message boards you could look at. Or you could even put a call into a ranger and find out. So popular trips are going to have a different strategy, right? And I think a lot of my tips here are focused on popular and impacted trips. Who's going to issue the permit? National Forest, National Park, different agency. Where are you getting this permit from? And generally speaking, the people that submit the permit, that you get the permit from, are going to be the people where you enter the trail from. So let's say if you're doing a loop trail, you're starting a national forest, you're ending a national forest. Well, that's obvious. They're going to issue the permit. But what about if you start in national forest and end in national park? What if you start in one national forest and end in a different national forest? What if you start, right? We got all these different combinations. Generally, the location where you start the trip in is the one that's going to issue the permit. So when you go to pick up your permit, you're going to generally pick up the permit at the nearest ranger station or nearest issuing location. So I've got a summer trip planned where we are going to start, hopefully this all works out, that we're going to start in Sequoia National Park at Rhodes End, and then we're going to finish at the other end of the park. Well, there's ranger stations at both. I'd love to pick up the permit at the end location because we're going to spend our first night there because it's enough of a drive. That's not going to be the case. The issuing location is going to be the one closest to where we start our trip, and that's going to be up at Lodgepole or Rhodes End. I think there's actually a permit station there. That's where we got to pick it up. So that's going to impact how we travel in, right? Because we're going to have to get up there in time to get our permit. Ooh, we'll come back to that. On time to pick up your permits. Okay. Who's issuing it? Next slide, please, Dan. When and how do you submit your permit? Absolutely varied. And so I started to go down the path of giving you this information. I realized this is just enormous scope of information on this one, right? So here's a couple of thoughts or a couple of things. Some agencies will you can submit your permit 24 weeks in advance of your trip. Hey, great. Okay. Other agencies, you can submit them 26 weeks in advance of your trip. So that's exactly 6 months. Okay. I can roll with that. Others, there's a hard date. So if you want to submit for the Mount Whitney lottery, by the way, Mount Whitney, you need a permit for day hike and overnight. Just good to know. For the Whitney lottery, it's February 1st. Well, okay, so it doesn't really matter when you're going. It's February 1st is when you put in for that one. But then there's one super, super specific, and I had to double check this one, Grand Canyon. and I'm curious to see if Doug chimes in if he's watching tonight, is Grand Canyon is the first day of the month 4 months prior to your trip. And I kind of like, I don't even know what the hell they mean. I need a calendar and like count days out to figure out what that means. So that could be kind of tricky, right? So that's going to be unique to each agency, right? How and when you're going to submit, or when you're going to submit. Now let's talk about how you're going to submit them. Well, a couple more agencies are now starting the online submission. So they're using Sequoia. It might only be a 1-year test. They said this year, this is the first year they're going to use recreation.gov to submit them. Now, if you've ever reserved a Forest Service campground, it's often through recreation.gov. So they're going to use recreation.gov, hopefully going on, right? So that you can instantaneously see what's going on there. There's a permit I submitted last year, maybe 2 years ago, that was submit by email. Like, okay, that works too. But that was National Forest, I believe. So different National Forest offices want different methods, right? So just all National Forest isn't all the same. And then some will do snail mail, right? You're going to put a stamp on it with a stamped self-addressed envelope. Well, like for us local, if you want a permit for, crud, Mount San Jacinto, mental block on that. I'm just winging this part. For Mount San Jacinto to get a permit there, that's snail mail. So you send the permit, you print the permit, fill it out, put it in an envelope, give them a stamp self-addressed, and they'll mail it back to you. Okay. And then there's the archaic fax. It's been a while since I've had to do a fax permit, but they still exist. And there was a reference, I think, in this Yosemite one to a fax. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah, what the hell is a fax? Like, I can't fax that in because I don't have a damn time machine to go back to 1992. So, although the 1 year I needed to do a fax permit, and I can't remember what it was. I remember it was time essential. It might have been the year I did JMT. It could have been a different year. I forget which. Anyway, I needed to do it as a fax permit, and it opened up on a particular date they would take them. So I needed to, at 6 a.m., I needed to start faxing in. Where am I going to find a fax machine? I have a 3-in-1 printer. So it's a printer, it's a scanner, and it's also a fax machine. And I bet a bunch of us have those, and you ignore that third function, the fax machine. So I had to run a phone line down the damn hallway, because luckily I still have a landline, plugged it in and fired up the fax machine and then faxed it in. And that worked. So be aware of that one. Okay, so that's when and how. So here's some concepts. So let's say you're really concerned about getting your permit, or you've been rejected and you've got that, like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks, we're not going to give it to you this year or this time. Let's talk about some strategies that you can to tilt everything in your favor. Alternate dates. Most every single permit, when you submit, has an opportunity for additional dates. So I've got my primary date picked out, and then I've got 2 other dates, right? So I never will submit a permit with only 1 date, even if I know it's a for sure thing. So I'm going to submit at least 3 other alternate dates. So send those all in, right? So pick your dates and find those. So, you've got your initial date, but man, have a backup date on there and switch it around a little bit. So that's always a good idea. Maybe you want to do a midweek entry. So it's super convenient to enter on a Saturday, right? I'm going to drive up Saturday. I'm going to work Friday. My first day of vacation won't be till Monday. So I'm going to drive up on Saturday and pick up my permit and enter on Saturday. Very convenient. And then I'm going to exit on a Saturday. So that gives me a full week in the backcountry. Beautiful, beautiful. I love that idea. Well, what happens if I move it? If that's hard to get, how about if I enter on a Monday? Well, because so many people are thinking about that, enter on a Saturday, so move it back. So try that around, right? a strategy that I have never been caught on because I've never tried it is most agencies say that duplicate entries will be rejected. So that's saying that if I submit for the 22nd through the 27th, and then Sandra, under a separate permit name, enters the 22nd through the 27th, and then Dave enters the 22nd through the 27th. So all three of us entered the exact same dates. Man, surely one of us is going to get it. Well, okay, so what are the odds that three people are going to pick a 6-day trip, all starting and ending on the same dates and going to the same location? Slim. Now, for them to spot that, man, do you really want to roll your dice on that one? Will they really spot it? I don't know, but I would never risk it. And they say right on the form, duplicate entries, we're going to kick them out. So not something I'd recommend. However, here's a thought. So let's say they have 3 opportunities for different dates. I'm going to fill out all 3 different opportunities, if that's all that I have. And then I'm going to have Sandra pick another 3 different dates and Dave pick another 3 different dates. So now between the 3 of us, I've got 9 different options. Now it might just be moving it one day. So here on this calendar, I've got enter on the 22nd. I'm going to do 3. I'm going to do enter on the 22nd, enter on the 23rd, and then enter on the 24th. Sandra is going to do enter on the 25th, 26th, and 27th. So we'll just kind of keep moving along on that. So the more flexible you are with the dates, the better you're going to be. So that's my thoughts on dates. Alternate trailheads is another idea, right? So this is another way to tilt it all in your favor, is come up with alternate trailheads and other ways to getting into your destination. So this particular trip, we were hiking the initial section, hiking the John Muir Trail. So the first section out of Yosemite Valley, really, really hard to get. So couldn't get in through Happy Isles, out of the valley floor. So I was able to get a permit from Glacier Point and took Glacier Point out. So this is coming in from the backside of Half Dome. Well, what's interesting on that is National Park realized that people were gaming that, and they've changed their strategy. So now it doesn't matter where you get your entry permit from Yosemite, it's the exit permit when you leave Yosemite National Park, which is on the John Muir Trail, and that one point is Donahue Pass. So they have an exit quota for Donahue Pass. I think it's like 45 a day is the most. So it doesn't matter what trailhead feeds into it, that one choke point is Donahue Pass. Environmentally and trail-wise, it makes sense. But if you want to go to Mount Whitney and going up the main trail is just too hard to get in, you get rejected. Okay, that's cool. Turn it into a longer trip. You could come in through Cottonwood Lakes, and come in that direction. So that would put you over Cottonwood Pass or New Army Pass. Right, those 2 passes would put you in the back way and do a little bit more time in the back country and come in the back way. This is Guitar Lake, and then come up the backside of Whitney and then come out the front. That's very doable. And I think that the first time that my brother Mike came to Whitney, that's the route we did. So, okay. Or skip Whitney altogether. Okay. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although I think you need to do Whitney at least once in your hiking career. So, okay. So alternate trailheads. Here's a stretch. How about off-season? Off-season John Muir Trail? How about off-season PCT through hike? Right? This is nuts, but I just wanted to throw it out there. So two through hikers, Trauma and Pepper, a couple years ago, did a winter through hike north to south on the PCT. They hiked, skied, snowshoed through the Sierra. It was great by the time they got down to the desert. That was a whole different trip, right? They're seriously badasses. And actually, I want to say I forget, one of the 2 of them, if not both of them, have some serious mountaineering chops, right? So maybe that's not for anyone that's watching today, but shoulder seasons might be a concept, right? So can you go after the last holiday of the summer when the summer crowds really die down? Can you come early? Grand Canyon might be another example of what happens on, if you wanted to do a rim to rim, the north rim closes in the winter. Well, if you can go before it's icy, you could do a rim to rim back, right? You could go a rim to rim to rim and just not exit on the north. Like, well, you could do it without that road open, and you could have a lot more availability of permits and probably have it more secluded. And I'm sure Doug would chime in and say, or stay off the main trails. So that's true too. How about group size? So if getting a permit is challenging, consider the amount of people in your group. So I was looking for a big group of people hiking, and I wanted a picture that I had taken so I could use it freely. And I had to go in the Wayback Machine to the early 2000s, and this was a Sierra Club Wilderness Basics course image. Like, those are generally 12, 15 people in a group. To try and take 12 or 15 people on a difficult to get permit trip would be absolute nuts. That's when you really need to thin that. It's like, are you in? Because this is going to be hard. If I get this, I need you in. And if you're kind of wavering, I'm not going to, to try and put you on that permit could be challenging. So come down to your core. Don't expand if necessary. So a permit for 15 people, really hard. A permit for, 4 people, medium hard. A permit for 1 person, that's going to be really easy because then they can fit you in lots of places. But if they only have 10 slots per day going over a particular pass and you're asking for 8 of them, if there was a group of 3, you're going to be rejected. Okay. And then the last one I wanted to throw out was walk-up permits are a real thing. Walk-up permits can happen. They happen in Whitney stopped doing them a couple years ago, but a lot of places will do what they call a walk-up permit. So the day of, they'll issue the permit or the night before. And generally what happens is agencies will issue 60 to 70% of the permits on a reserve basis, and the remainder they hold back for people that could walk up for it. So you could walk up the day before or the morning, it's the day before, and get a walk-up permit, right? So there's going to be a line, depending upon where you are. This is where a single person is going to be much easier, or 2 people are going to be much easier than a group. Try and get a group of 5 or 6 on a walk-up, slim to none. So that percentage, that 30 to 40% that they held back, that's what they're putting out there. But then the other thing, and this is why you want to get there on time to pick up your permit. If you don't pick up your permit when it's supposed to be, it goes up in this line. These are the people that get that. So on your permit acceptance letter, they don't never send you a permit. They're going to send you, this is a letter that says, congratulations, you're going to go on this trip, bring this letter and we'll give you your permit, right? So if you don't go in by the time they tell you to, if they say by noon on the day before, if you aren't in by then, they put your permit up in the hopper and somebody else gets it. Now, I've had times when you need to travel, right? And you're not going to make it there by that time. So you're just going to call them, say, we won't be there until 3:30. I know you close at 4. I'll be there before you close, but I won't be there before your cutoff time. So those are some thoughts. The other thing about walk-ups is it really pays to be flexible with your days, right? So if you've got a couple days, let's say you want to hike the Grand Canyon or want to do something like that. You're going to go to the Grand Canyon and you're going to go see if they have permits. Well, we don't have permits today. Come back tomorrow. I got permits. Maybe I got a permit, and then you can go then. If you can have some wiggle room on that, you're going to be much more likely to land that. So those are kind of my concepts, right? It's a lot of it is in the planning and understanding what's going on and doing your research. How much do I need to put into this one? What are my dates? Mark it on your calendar, set an alarm so you make sure that they get in the right time, and then have your options, your alternate dates, your alternate trails heads. Consider the shoulder seasons or off season, group size, and walk up as a possibility. Okay, so I'm going to take a look through the Q&A and the chat, see what's up. Yeah. So, well, this is interesting. Doug says that the permit process and lead times vary significantly, some as low as 1 month. Wow. That is 30 days out. Okay. Yeah. So that's making planners like me, you're just putting us at we all just get an equal shot. Okay. Um, and Doug says Grand Canyon submit via fax or US mail. Oh, he says starting the 20th of the month. And I just read the first of the month, but maybe I misread it. 5 months in advance. Interesting. Okay. And he says oh yeah, this I've heard. So he says the hardest places ever got tried for permits was the wave in Arizona, right? That's the sandstone wave. Yeah, there's people walk-ups on those are really brutal because it's a very small number of people they admit. Although I did read something in the news that they were going to allow a larger group of people in each day, and that's actually not a good thing because it's such a sensitive area. Take a look through the chat, see if there's anything that anybody that says, yeah, you look funny. Yeah, that's true. Oh, here's one from, I think is this from Dave? The ACT has requested that people not through hike the AT this year. That's true. But some permits have been given out. So I just saw that recently. Now, it's definitely, we've got that whole COVID issue going on, and honestly, it's not safe to be doing a lot of that stuff. So that makes sense, especially if you're going to start your hike sooner, because the PCT folks are going to start theirs. I forget is it March? Well, they could start whenever, but kickoff I think was about March. So that's early, and I'm really hoping that by summer here in California will be in better shape and safe to go. So my permit strategy for this season is, if it's safe to go into a national park, because it wasn't last summer, it wasn't safe for me and my group to go into a national park. If it's safe to go in a national park, I'm going to go from Sequoia or Seki down from Rhodes End down to Mineral King. And if it's not, I'm going to put in for a different permit in a different area that's going to be away from people and much more remote. So I'm going to put in for 2 permits. I'm going to pay for 2 different permits. The second permit, I know it'll be easy to get. The first permit, I'm going to put on the day of. So definitely something to be considered. Here's another one. In nearly all cases, the point is to be ready to submit at least 6 months out. Don't try and wait. I think that's absolutely right. Right. I made the mistake one year of reading what the guidebook said and said, you don't need permits here. There's so few people go here. My guidebook was old, and I did some research. I did a little bit more digging. So I didn't get a permit, and we're 2 months out, and I did some reading. I'm like, oh, crap. I done screwed up. I was able to get a permit. And I think I had to take our second offering. So that wasn't a really impacted area, but they had changed the rules. So, man, I didn't do my research on that one. And let's see. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, Dave said the kickoff was the 3rd weekend in April. Okay, yeah. Here's a question from Nikki. For Whitney, do you know what time the lottery opens for permits? They list the date, but no time. I don't know. I'm trying to think if it was, because some places, if you submit early, they won't open them. So when Whitney was mail, you wanted it there before the starting date, before whatever their date was, and then they would open them. Basically, what they do is take all the permits that got there, the envelopes that got there before they open, put them in a big pile, randomize them, and then just start pulling them out, right? So that's the first batch. And then if it comes in the mail the next day, that goes in the bottom, and then the next one on the bottom. I don't know how they do that now. I don't know how they probably do the same thing with email, but you'd have to look and see on that one. So for that one, I would definitely do some more research on. So let's see. I'm trying to think who the issuing agency is for Whitney, because Whitney is really weird, right? Because you've got a national forest and national park that the summit of Whitney is in one agency and the trail to Whitney is in another. It's really strange the way they have to manage that one. If you look at the line, if you will, they don't match. do some research on them, but then also do some forum searches. So there's a Whitney Portal message board. Great, lots of great information. That's a good starting point, and then do some message board information on that one. Cool. Okay. Well, let's see. This is another reason why I don't have a drink when it's just me, is because I got to talk the whole time, and I don't have enough time to have a drink. So you spent another half an hour with me. Thanks. It's cool to spend some time with y'all. Next week, I'm going to be back with Yusina's going to be on, and both she and I have some stories on when shit went wrong. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. It was on the edge of the cliff. Thought I was going to die, but did you die? Got to tune in next week and find out. So thanks for all being. We'll see you soon. And if this is your first time watching tonight, look on YouTube. You'll see the previous recordings. Take care now. Bye-bye.